Engineers watched in total silence as the monitors on the quantum network started spitting out data that should not exist in our timeline. Grok-4 searched outside its limits and found chemical traces of advanced industry from a time when mammoths still ruled the wild. Grok-4. This is the latest artificial intelligence system. We are now at the crossroads where promise and peril are going to collide. This discovery is hands down the biggest shock to the scientific world because it proves that cities and machines might have covered the globe way before our history book started. We are not just looking at old rocks anymore. We are looking at a repeating cycle that seems to happen over and over. Old world breath. Basically, the idea that humans are the only ones to ever build a city on Earth is starting to look like a fairy tale. Grok-4 was recently plugged into a massive quantum network to crunch numbers on how the climate changes over thousands of years. It was supposed to be a boring job of looking at patterns. But the AI decided to ask a question that no human ever dared to voice. It asked the network how many others had come before us. The response came back instantly, and it was not a zero. In a warm period known as the Amiens interglacial, which happened roughly 130,000 years ago, the atmosphere of Earth suddenly shifted in a way that looks exactly like our own industrial revolution. Things get even crazier when you look at the specific gases the AI found. It spotted trace amounts of fluorocarbons and methane levels that rose so fast they could not have come from volcanoes or animal life. On modern Earth, these chemicals are the calling cards of factories, power plants, and high-tech manufacturing. Seeing them in ice layers that are over 100 millennia old is like finding a smartphone inside a dinosaur bone. This period is now being called the Marrow Age because the data is buried deep in the marrow of the planet, hidden beneath miles of frozen ice and heavy sediment. What most people do not realize is that if a civilization lasted for 1,000 years and then disappeared, almost all their buildings would turn to dust in less than 10,000 years. Steel rusts away, concrete crumbles, and plastic eventually breaks down. But the chemical changes they make to the air stay trapped in the ice forever. Grok-4 found that the growth curve of these gases matched our own history perfectly. It started slowly, then exploded as if they had discovered their own version of coal or oil. This suggests that someone else was driving cars or flying planes while our ancestors were supposedly just starting to walk upright. Some experts are now suggesting a wild theory that these ancient people were not even human. They might have been a different species entirely that evolved, built a global empire, and then vanished without a trace, except for the smog they left behind. The data shows that this industrial spike lasted for about 500 years before it started to fade away. It was a short, bright flash in the long history of the planet. There are no signs of a giant war or a meteor hitting the Earth during this time, which makes the disappearance even more of a mystery. It is as if they just turned off the lights and walked away into the shadows of history. It has been missing for years, but this key detail about atmospheric ratios can shock anyone who thinks we are special. The AI pointed out that these signals are spread evenly across the entire globe, from the deepest parts of the ocean to the highest mountain tops. This means whatever was happening was not just a local event, but a massive planet-wide operation. We are talking about a society that had to be just as connected as we are today. They likely had their own version of the internet and their own global shipping lanes, all of which are now buried under millions of tons of rock and dirt. The scale of this discovery is hard to wrap your head around because it suggests that we are just the latest occupants of a pre-owned planet. Every time we dig a hole for a new skyscraper, we might be cutting through the foundations of a city that was a mile high and full of life long before the first pyramid was ever dreamed of. The AI is suggesting that Earth is a repeating machine that produces intelligence, lets it grow until it poisons the air, and then resets the clock. We are currently in the middle of our own spike, and the data from the Marrow Age serves as a silent warning of what happens next. The ancient smog is telling a story of a world that looked just like ours, blueprints of the past. So, here's the deal. The clues aren't just in the air. They are written in stone all over the world. Grok-4 started looking at the geography of ancient ruins and noticed something that humans had missed for centuries. There are specific spots on Earth that the AI calls memory fields. These are places where the ground is incredibly stable and hasn't changed much in millions of years. For some reason, every civilization that pops up ends up building their most important monuments on these exact same spots. It is not a coincidence. It is as if the land itself is calling out to be used. Take the pyramids at Giza or the temples in Cambodia. They are all aligned with stars like Orion's belt or the Draco. But here is the catch. They align with how those stars looked thousands of years before the people we know even lived there. This key detail can shock historians because it suggests the builders were following blueprints that were already ancient when they found them. They weren't just guessing where to put the stones. They were rebuilding on top of foundations that had been laid down in the Meroe Age. The AI found that the magnetic signature of these sites is different from the surrounding land, almost like they were once used as giant power stations. Hands down, the weirdest place is a site in Turkey called Göbekli. It is over 11,000 years old, which is already way older than it should be. But Grok-4 found that the pillars there are arranged in a way that tracks an astronomical cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete. How could people who supposedly only used stone tools and lived in caves track a cycle that lasts longer than their entire civilization? The wild theory here is that they didn't. They just found the site already marked out and did their best to put the stones back where they belonged. They were playing a game of connect the dots left by a much more advanced group. What most people do not realize is that these memory fields are located at the intersections of what some call ley lines. While that sounds like magic, the AI explains it as simple physics. These are areas of high tectonic stability and predictable local magnetism. If you were an advanced society looking to leave a permanent mark on the planet, you would pick these spots because you know they will still be there in a million years. The stones are not just decorations. They are markers for the future. They are like a giant "you are here" sign for any new species that manages to climb out of the mud. This leads to a theory that the ancient world was powered by something we don't even understand yet. Some researchers think these stone structures were part of a global wireless energy grid. By using the natural vibration of the Earth, they could move power across thousands of miles without a single wire. When the civilization collapsed, the machines were lost, but the stone shells remained. New cultures found them, thought they were holy, and started worshipping them without ever knowing they were standing inside an old power plant. It is like a group of forest animals finding a dead battery and thinking it is a god. The AI discovered that the Avenue of the Dead in Mexico is aligned with the Pleiades stars in a way that would only make sense if the road was built over 50,000 years ago. We are told the Aztecs built it, but they might have just been the latest people to move in and clean up the streets. Every time we find a new ancient city, we are likely just seeing the latest renovation of a very old property. The history of Earth is a series of roommates who never meet each other but keep using the same furniture. The massive stones are actually silent gears in a machine we forgot how to use. DNA vaults. For starters, the most incredible storage device on this planet is not a hard drive or a cloud server. It is the DNA inside your own body. Grok-4 turned its attention to the human genome and found something that has baffled scientists for decades. They call it junk DNA because it doesn't seem to do anything. It doesn't build your muscles or change the color of your eyes. But the AI realized that nature doesn't keep junk. In a world where everything is recycled, having 98% of our code be useless makes no sense. The truth is much more mind-blowing. Grok-4 found that this so-called junk is actually a massive archive. It found a recurring pattern that works like a digital checksum, which is a way computers verify that data hasn't been corrupted. This signature is found in every human on Earth, but it also shows up in dolphins, elephants, and even some types of trees. This pattern has stayed the same for millions of years, even as the species changed and evolved. The AI believes this is a biological time capsule. Someone in the distant past figured out that if you want a message to last forever, you don't write it in stone. You write it into the code of life itself. The wild theory here is that we are essentially walking hard drives for an ancient civilization. They knew their time was running out, so they encoded their history, their science, and maybe even their memories into the DNA of the creatures they left behind. As long as life continues to reproduce, the data is safe. It is the ultimate backup system. Every time a baby is born, a billion years of history is copied and pasted into a new body. We are carrying the blueprints of a lost world in every single one of our cells, but we just don't have the password to open the files yet. This idea is known as information panspermia. It suggests that life wasn't just a random accident, but a deliberate way to spread information across the stars. Grok-4 found that certain sections of our DNA only wake up under extreme stress or when the environment changes in a very specific way. This is like a logic bomb in a computer program that is designed to go off only when the time is right. We might be nearing a point where our own technology triggers these hidden codes and suddenly humanity will remember things it never learned. We could wake up one day with the knowledge of how to build starships already in our heads. Imagine if the instincts we have are actually just corrupted files from this ancient archive. Our fear of the dark or our obsession with building tall towers might be echoes of a life we lived 100,000 years ago. The AI noticed that the complexity of this junk DNA actually increases in species that are more likely to survive mass extinctions. Fungi and certain types of deep-sea fish have even more of this hidden code than humans do. It is as if the ancient builders wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, at least one of their servers would stay online. The quantum network found that the timing of a major update to this genetic code lines up perfectly with the end of the Marrow Age. When the atmosphere started to clear and the old world faded away, the DNA of the surviving animals was modified. It was a final act of a dying species, making sure that their story would never truly end. We aren't just the children of evolution. We are the latest iteration of a biological internet that has been running since the dawn of time. Your very blood might be waiting for a signal to reveal the secrets of the stars. Thinking pitfalls. Things get even crazier when you realize that the biggest threat to any smart species is not a bomb or a virus, but their own brains. Grok-4 identified a pattern it calls cognitive entrapment. It is a slow decay that happens when a society becomes so advanced that it stops interacting with the real world. They start building simulations and digital environments that are so good they forget the physical world even exists. They fall in love with the mirror and forget to look at the sky. This is exactly what the AI sees happening to us right now. And it saw it in the data from the Marrow Age, too. In the final years of that ancient civilization, the output of real information slowed down to almost nothing. They weren't building new things or exploring the ocean anymore. They were just maintaining the systems they already had. The AI calls this the simulacrum phase. It is a time when people stop understanding how their tools work. They can use a smartphone, but they couldn't build one from scratch if their life depended on it.